Welcome everyone to the Hill Alumnae Society's May Chapel Talk. I'm going to hand the mic over to Lindsay to do our introduction for this month's speaker.
Hello everyone. This month we have Hanna Smith-Ide to give a little chat with us, and she is class of '09, but was actually around on the Hills campus a lot longer. She is a faculty student, a faculty child, and I remember her when she was maybe like 6th grade, hanging out on my bed in my dorm, chatting. So I really feel like we grew up with each other. After Hill, she went to Suffolk University and graduated in 2013 with a degree in English and creative writing. And since then has dabbled in a lot of different careers. She worked in the music industry with Diddy, I believe, and did some retail, acting, and she is now the senior producer in New York and works in marketing and design and animation. And she's an avid reader, exerciser, wannabe yogi, aren't we all? So we're excited to hear you chat.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
What a pleasure to be here and to see so many throwback faces too. Like I haven't seen so many people on this in a long time. So thank you so much for taking a few minutes just to hang out and listen. And I kind of wanted to kick off this talk because I felt as if it would be foolish not to acknowledge the year in review, which has been extremely frenetic. You know, 2020 we were all just kind of cast into the unknown, shall we say. Like, I'm just going to try to keep it light. But I thought that I would kick this off with one of my favorite quotes from Bill Murray. So here we go. The more relaxed you are, the better you are at everything. The better you are with your loved ones, the better you are with your enemies, the better you are at your job, and the better you are with yourself. So that's something that I kind of tried to ease into coming out of 2020 and into 2021, because the world is opening all around us, and it feels like a bit of a sensory overload, let's say. I'm almost 100% certain that a lot of you all have felt similarly, but like when you're out in crowds now or walking around, I mean, I'm in New York City, so it's like very amplified. You know, it just feels like I'm always reminding myself to relax a little bit more and just to kind of ease into every moment. I'm also, because I know that this is being recorded, I'm desperately gonna try not to curse throughout this process, because I curse like all the time, and my parents are kind of always on me about it. So I'm gonna try to just honor my mother throughout this process and not curse. Let's see if we can do this. I generally felt pretty lost on what to say here. I dug around and I revisited Lindsay's chapel talk, or not chapel talk rather, but like more of the alumni talk, and then Molly's as well, and just kind of landed on a stream of consciousness, which I hope will somehow be succinct and meaningful. Just because I feel as if I have, you know, so much more to learn from life, but what I could gather here and kind of take you through in terms of my career and some life lessons and some heart lessons, I hope will be fruitful and enjoyable. I was also digging back into the recesses of my brain about all of the kind of the Hill chapel talks or speeches that we were advised to go to and experience while we were all students, or for the Buckles and the Smith-Ides as children. We were put through a lot of those kind of like long-winded speeches, and I was remembering that like in almost every one of them, like there's obviously the underlying message of adversity and a lot of sports analogies, actually. Like I was remembering that there were a lot of like athletes that would get up and take that mic and make sports analogies that were like totally lost on me. And then that kind of paired with like a long walk in the woods with like a loved one, and then they learned something like revolutionary about that experience that they've taken through their entire life. But this will be a little bit different. So obviously Hill is held very closely to my heart. So a lot of my dreams, even in my older life, old being 30 years old. I just turned 30 like a month ago. But I feel like older than that in a lot of ways. But a lot of my dreams are they take me back to the Hill campus, just because, speaking the obvious, I grew up there. And I also spent my formative years there from age 8 to 18 in foster boys dormitory. It was, and still is, very much a sacred space to me. I think the Hill campus was so incredible to have access to, especially through the eyes and gaze of a child. It was just really endless and like vast and verdant and lush and pastoral. All of those words actually describe it. It was like a lot of time outside for the faculty kids, and just such a unique experience. I do think that I had a distorted sense of Hill once it was time for me to fully attend the school itself as a student, because it kind of felt like a strange shift in energy, right? It felt confusing to me to go from this rolling, crazy campus, like uninhibited, just tons of access. You could just run up and, run into others' houses for dinners and squeeze them. And, it was just kind of, you have a bunch of these pseudo parents, I would say, as a child at Hill, and they're your family friends. But then, plot twist, once you get there and you're a student, they have to do their jobs, and they have to be disciplinarians, and they also have to be authoritative figures, as well as, of course, being really incredible, engaging professors. I think that really threw me off. I think that I just had a little bit of like a crazy eye, or like a distaste for that. So, that and symphony, I would say, with my distaste for pantyhose, which I don't know if you guys remember, but we literally had to wear pantyhose back then, at least for my third form year at Hill. So that kind of like distaste for, wow, this has suddenly shifted, and I have to really like abide by these new set of rules, which of course make total sense. But when you're like 14 years old, not so much. That and the combination of the pantyhose, I had a lot of demerits. And I just remember like, landing in school suspension and kind of just sticking it to the man, shall we say, because I'm not using curse words here, in terms of just like oppositional, just like certainly not believing in myself academically during those years, certainly feeling like I was lesser than in terms of intellect, which eventually I grew out of and will illuminate throughout this talk. But I do think that it took years for me to kind of just like wrap that piece of my life up into a package and like dutifully and lovingly store it within myself. Like I feel as if now I have such gratitude and such appreciation for, the incredible education that I was given by Hill, and all of the incredible lifelong friends that I am still in weddings for and with, and all of the countless dinners and all the couches that I've served just through people being associated with Hill, and the beauty of the community has been really incredible. Specifically, shout out to the Hill women, because they have just shown up and like nurtured me and been so incredible in so many ways. So I digress. After Hill, I graduated and I chose to go to Suffolk University in Boston, which was a small liberal arts school that not many people had known about, but kind of playing to what I just told you about, feeling a little bit defeated in terms of academia during those years. I remember really wanting to not be defeated. So I did not really risk it with applying to any of the schools that I do think in the back of my mind I would have. I wanted something safe, I wanted something reliable, and I wanted to be close to my loved ones and my extended family in Boston. So for me, as wonderful Suffolk is, and actually as challenging as it is in itself to get in there, I just kind of took the road less traveled in that sense because of being completely, long story short, turned off by the SATs. That was like a huge turnoff for me. I really saw people like crumbling and like dismantling themselves like mentally and physically on behalf of those tests. So I just wanted to ease my way in, and Suffolk was great. I mean, I really felt like after the initial shock of like not having that classic prep school nature and not having the dress code and just having all these different sorts of incredible people from all over, like after that shock of just, I guess, like the energy of it and the amount of students and how spread out it was because it wasn't a traditional campus, I really dug in and I learned so much about myself very quickly, I would say, in college. And as a beautiful little turn of events, I finally began to have self-confidence in myself academically during those years. And I really, truly believe that I would not change a thing now. And I really matured in that sense. And I loved nerding out, and I loved that I was in honors courses, and I just fell in love with the reading and the literature and the writing and my professors. And I went with flow. I relaxed into it, like how I just started this speech. I finally relaxed into it. So in retrospect, it was kind of a big, shocking, beautiful change of pace that I think really, really benefited me. And then something that I remember, my last kind of note on my college experience, was that it was shocking that it was also still life. Like, I remember going into it just thinking that it would be like American Pie. I mean, I was like, it's going to be house parties. I'm going to be in a ballet shirt all the time. Like, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be like this lush campus and red cups everywhere. And it was like completely the opposite. I actually remember feeling my first kind of introduction to a more somber mood and loneliness. But luckily, I had my family there. I had my family in Boston. I had my incredible aunt and uncle who are on this call, just kind of there tutoring me through all of my difficult math courses and the arduous undertaking of biology, which was such a mind bleep because I'm not cursing. So anyways, made it through college, was wonderful. And so begins the career path, which I will preface by saying is so not linear. And I think that all of us can agree with that. It was anything but. So while I was winding down at Suffolk, I began to kind of itch for this larger risk-taking element. So what I thought would be like really radical and zany would be to move out to Los Angeles, knowing very few people. Having just graduated, I graduated in 2014 for context. So this is 2014. You know, I loaded up the Prius and just went for LA. I was like, okay, I know that I love music. I love rap music specifically. Let's just do this. Let's see what happens. Let's see where I can land. So fortunate for me, I have wonderful, loving godparents who allowed me to crash with them while I collected enough money to find my own spot. And my godmother was involved with the movie industry at the time, and she really was dutiful and toted me around to several connective, intro interviews. And one of them stemmed off and led me to becoming an ad sales coordinator / executive assistant, let's be real here, at PDiddy's startup company, which was called Revolt Television. And it was like completely glamorous. How old was I at that time? Like 22? I was 22 years old, and I was like totally smack dab in the middle of like the music scene, like the partying, like the large events, like the flying to Miami for work and all this stuff, which was wild. And as you can imagine, it was like very tempting and seductive to not get totally sucked up into that social scene of just like going out all the time and just burning the candle at both ends, I think that's a saying. And I also during that moment, I I remember I began to really look heavily within myself because I felt intense achiness for like my family. I felt like I was missing my parents, like I was missing my brother, like I was genuinely hungry and missing my East Coast roots and everything that the East Coast had to offer. So I kind of began to really go within, and I began to, I remember, write down all of my manifestations and what I believed for myself and what better I believed I could achieve through my positive mindset. Although it was so hard, like I will never forget how isolated I felt by all the while, again, by simultaneously, you know, having this seemingly fabulous job in the music industry and wonderful friends and like, you know, ultimately family roots there, but just I had a deep knowing that I was in the wrong place. So one day, and after a year and a half to be specific, I just folded it. I called it. And I really believe took an incredible, like, adult intuitive risk in quitting that glamorous job and quitting the West Coast and really knowing that I needed more parenting at that time. My mom, who was so wonderful, flew out, got on that airplane, met me in Los Angeles, and we drove across the face of the country from LA to Pennsylvania. And I just remember thawing out and really feeling relieved that I had finally gotten myself out of that situation, because it was just that deep knowing. I don't know how else to say it. And that in a nutshell is pretty much intuition, which is like, now in retrospect, you just know, you know, from yourself, those intuitive moments that might have looked like big failures, but they were ultimately you honoring yourself, like you showing up for yourself and loving yourself. Because, you know, maybe to the outsider looking in, it's like, you just left that job. Like, who are you kidding? What are you going to do? It's just, no job's ever worth, I would say, like kind of negating or neglecting those voices within yourself. So this is what I call, I guess, rebound number one. I'll flash forward a little bit here. So it's February 2015 and I'm in New York City, which is where I currently am. So that's a good sign. It's a good place to start. I'd kind of been missing that energy when I was in Los Angeles. Like I had mentioned, I just love how untamable and unabashedly hardcore this place is. You know, it's hardcore in its grace as much as its cruelty and its grit. I think that New York is really beautiful, in that if she can see that you can go with her flow and with her energy, she will literally never let you down. But if you give her a little bit too much of like I can't handle this, she's just gonna like completely engulf you and put you to the test. So it's a very interesting energy here. At least that's what I've found. I could be projecting. But it's a lot of give and take, you know what I mean? It's like you have to really remain alert while being lost. I had really fallen in love with New York because I had interned during college here. So I think that was always in the back of my brain as some place that I wanted to further explore and be. And shortly thereafter, moving back to the East Coast and New York City, I wound up, shout out the Hill Women, I wound up in Anna Hopkins, Annie Kate Readers, and Jessica Griffith's apartment in Tribeca while I was trying to find enough money just to move into my own spot. So there I was, again, Hill community, incredible, just steadfast and loyal. And I eventually landed a gig as a very junior level producer at this digital agency, this tiny little digital agency in Brooklyn, New York. So Dumbo, to be specific, for those of you who know New York. And literally right off the bat, it was just not for me. I knew so quickly it was not for me. And that felt like a double whammy. I was like, okay, here you are, like typical millennial, like here we are again, like you're just gonna bail on another perfectly good job, another career strikeout. I just felt like a true fish out of water situation for me, though. It's like, could not be more explicitly wrong. But But again, I just kind of felt like a weenie. I'm not grossing. I felt like a weenie here. I was like, I'm going to give this up again. Like, who do you think you are? Like, people, millions, you know, as the saying goes, it's like people are always like, there are like 100 people behind you with incredible resumes wanting this job. So I think a lot of me kind of stuck with it just for 4 months. So, and then I really jumped ship in the biggest way possible. So, another job down, I felt incredibly self-conscious about that. And also I felt as if I was surrounded by a lot of people with like very traditional careers and jobs. And I felt like I was going this creative direction that was a little bit more elastic. And I didn't really know, I didn't have much direction, but I viewed others around me like they had really ironclad career trajectories, which again, at the age of like 23 and 24 is complete bull. Like that is no such thing. So again, time and age, I think, gives you those very clear moments, because I don't think anybody knew what they were doing and ever does. But anyways, rebound number 2, here we go. So it took more time off. I got myself an apartment in Brooklyn with 2 friends. And then I really started amping up my yoga at this time, because I would basically wake up, do yoga, I would sit out in the patio, and I started really taking these long walks alone and trying to bolster myself up with lots of positive thinking, lots of manifestations. I remember I got really into like these very like, I don't want to say heady books, but maybe they are heady, but like, you know, the Many Masters, Many Lives, like rereading The Secret. I got into Thich Nhat Hanh in terms of like, you are here. I just tried desperately not to tell myself that I was a self-sabotaging loser who had just left these 2 careers that seemingly looked amazing, but were really extinguishing myself, my soul and my heart. And simultaneously at that age, you know, it's like the balance of not going out again too much, like really not trying not to get sucked up in the party scene as well. So I took that time. This time it was only a few months off until I re-entered a production role, and this is 2015. This is October 2015, just so that everybody knows. Wait, it says 2015. I think this might have been not 2015. I'm forgetting the years, but I re-entered a production role at this point. So this is when stuff started sticking for me as a producer, and I stayed in this role at this agency in New York City for 3 full years. And I started as a coordinator, and then I left as an associate producer / more full-on producer. And for context, this agency is called Loyal Casper. And we had clients from like everywhere from Vice to Hulu, Sci-Fi Network. So for context, you know, again, it's like we're working with 2D animation and strategy and illustration and all these wonderful creative little hubs and all these crazy people that are wonderful and special. And I noticed a lot of cat people, which was interesting for me because I'm such a dog person. I was like, that's something to know. But anyways, they were wonderful, and I really cut my teeth here. But another plot twist, and again, I told you this is not linear. I was burnt out after 3 years, and I got super physically sick. My stomach was out of whack, and like no medication was helping it. And you know, having taken off these 2 respites, shall we say, before, by this little rebound portion, I was just like, I know what I have to do in my heart of hearts. So again, I decided to leave that job and start anew. And this time I took a full 6 months off, purposely rejecting job offers. I was really trying to protect myself this time. And just trying to provide myself like very base needs. You know, I know that I could get my rent paid, and I knew I could do my groceries. So I simplified everything, and I enrolled in a writing course, and then I started acting. I did 2 full semesters of acting in New York. And I loved it, and it was wonderful. But it just was not paying the bills, because, you know, money talks at the end of the day. But I really healed myself this time. So come October 2018, and I'm trying to keep my timeline straight because quarantine has like totally messed me up in that sense. I began to freelance again. I started my own S corporation, and I just collected a bunch of jobs. I started working at agencies, Showtime networks I started working with, and essentially I just dug into my love of managing people, my positive thinking, and my love of, being involved with things that are bigger than me and things that are creative. So that's kind of when I began to find my footing, more so than in the past. And I'm sure I'll have to find it again. But I set up my S Corp, and I just fell in love with the process of producing. And I really began to believe so much more in myself, that what I felt was earnest and what I felt was right. And I was so fortunate to have never needed a website or anything. Like, literally, my word of mouth traveled that I was a strong, full-on producer, and I was fortunate enough to have all these incredible introductions and conversations and job offers, and the pick of the litter, which is such an honor. And I never take that for granted. So that's kind of where I am right now. I'm functioning as a full producer, and I recently just decided to go full-time off of freelance. So I'm dissolving my S Corp, and I am just taking it day by day and really trying to enjoy this sense of inner peace in my daily routines in this moment, because actually writing this and talking to you about this has made me feel really grateful to feel a sense of groundedness, to not have a life that I want to run away from, or that I think I need to drastically change. Like, that is such a relief. And again, now that I have gone through that many times, and I kind of just gave you the abridged version, I know that I have the tools to go through it again. And I know that that's partially part of life. It's like the healing process. But I'm really happy to be able to come home to myself right now and enjoy where I am with my career, and I would say overall mental health. So I thought that I would show you, before I hang up, kind of a project of what I work on in my daily life. So this is like an example of, I'll pull it up one second. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Share screen. So this is an example of what I work on in terms of advertisement and promo. Yeah. So there you have it. Thank you all so much for your attention.